So Fergie is preparing to go nuclear, to drop the bomb that for a long time she has resisted as she grifts for money from whoever.
I believe that Andrew and Meghan have crossed paths. Why did they protect Andrew? And it might be because Andrew could have fired back and said that he does in fact know Meghan. You know, it could be a real tit-for-tat moment for them.
Meghan Markle is in a state of high anxiety amid growing concern that Sarah Ferguson is set to seal a massive money deal to write the bombshell book that all the royals have always feared.
He said Miss Markle was a close companion to Prince Andrew.
According to people, she got started her yachting days and she never stopped really. I don't think any of her boyfriends knew about it, but Meghan Markle was known as a hardcore yacht partying person, ready for anything.
And there was a big post from Meghan from As Ever, you know, her weird online store where she sells mundane domestic products for astronomical prices.
The Yorks have always been protected by Harry and Meghan, but I think the gloves are about to come off.
Harry, who's that standing next to the Queen? Is that a servant? That's what Harry wrote in his book Spare. How stupid is this man that he actually believes it? Or is it that he wanted to believe?
Are Meghan Markle is screwed after Andrew got arrested by the British police?
A man called Kevin Blatt. Now, he is a celebrity tape broker, ladies, where he describes a 2018 call from a woman claiming to possess a 4-year-old tape of a Meghan who is about to marry a prince.
Her name is Meghan, and she's about to marry a prince in England.
What?
Yeah, this story's not true, too. It is true. I believe this is Meghan.
Revisit some of the most controversial moments in royal history, including the fallout from Megxit. Yeah. Did you want to say something?
No. It's just that I was going to say, we often splice you into my TV show, What Just Happened, and we recorded it this afternoon, and this was our kind of lead story.
Their reputation's down in the toilet as it is. I mean, I'm not sure how far Fergie would go. Perhaps Meghan and Andrew have crossed paths. I mean, it's something that I'm not sure will even come to light. I mean, it's highly suspicious given the circles that Andrew and Meghan have obviously floated in.
The whisper started quietly, almost too quietly to notice at first. But within hours, it had raced through royal corridors, newsroom back channels, and the private WhatsApp groups where palace watchers trade secrets like currency. And the message was simple, explosive, and almost unbelievable. Someone inside the royal orbit claims Sarah Ferguson has recordings, actual recordings of private conversations involving Harry and Meghan. Not vague recollections, not secondhand gossip, recordings.
Meghan Markle's past is truly coming back to bite her in the butt. And I am here for it. I am here for it because, Meghan thinks that she can go through life spiting everybody, hurting people, stepping on people, and never coming back to haunt her. Except when one of these people is Sarah Ferguson, who is as bad as Meghan Markle.
And the moment that rumor surfaced, something changed. Because if it's true, even partially true, it doesn't just threaten another tabloid cycle. It threatens the entire narrative Harry and Meghan have spent years carefully constructing about their time inside the royal family. Think about that for a second. For years, the Sussex story has been told almost entirely from their perspective. Interviews, documentaries, podcasts, a memoir that shattered records and burned bridges across the Atlantic. Their version of events has dominated headlines. Their voice has shaped the story.
She knows the way for the big payday is a Prince Harry-style autobiography. A $20 million advance, like Harry received, is what she wants. And the people who are most terrified about this are Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Because it is Fergie, of course, who could reveal all about what really went on with this couple and the British royal family and Andrew behind the scenes.
But now imagine something else entering the picture. Another voice, another record, another version. And according to insiders whispering behind closed doors in London publishing circles, that is exactly what may be happening right now. Because the woman at the center of this sudden storm isn't a random outsider or a disgruntled palace employee. It's Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, someone who has been orbiting the royal family's inner drama for decades. Someone who has seen things, heard things, and survived scandals that would have buried almost anyone else. And the rumor now spreading through royal gossip networks is that during the early years when Meghan first entered royal circles, Fergie was closer to the Sussexes than most people realize, closer than the headlines ever suggested, closer than Meghan might now wish. According to multiple insiders who have been talking to publishers quietly exploring the idea of a memoir, Ferguson allegedly kept recordings of conversations over the years, sometimes casually, sometimes as notes for future projects, sometimes simply as a habit developed during business, discussions, and charity planning sessions. And here's where the story starts to feel less like gossip and more like a ticking time bomb, because some of those conversations may have included Meghan, some may have included Harry, and if even fragments of those recordings exist, the implications are staggering. Now, before anyone imagines secret spy operations or elaborate surveillance plots, insiders insist the situation may be far less dramatic than that. Ferguson has spent decades navigating complicated business deals, media projects, and personal negotiations. Recording conversations, especially when discussing memoirs, publishing ideas, or potential collaborations, is not unheard of in those circles. But the difference now is context, because when those conversations happened years ago, no one imagined the Sussex saga would explode the way it eventually did. No one imagined Oprah interviews. No one imagined Netflix documentaries. No one imagined Spare. And certainly no one imagined that the woman once seen as a friendly guide helping Meghan navigate royal life could someday become a potential wildcard holding pieces of a much bigger story. But insiders claim that is precisely why publishers are suddenly paying attention. Because a memoir from Ferguson isn't just another celebrity book deal. It would be written by someone who was inside royal rooms long before Meghan arrived. Someone who understands the York side of the royal family, the Windsor dynamics, the tensions that simmer quietly behind palace doors. And someone who, if the rumors are even partially accurate, may have audio records of conversations that were never meant to leave those rooms. Which raises an uncomfortable question now echoing around both London and California. What exactly might those recordings contain? According to sources close to several publishing houses, the most intriguing aspect of Ferguson's rumored material isn't necessarily explosive secrets or shocking confessions. It's something potentially even more damaging in the world of public narratives. Contradictions. Moments where private conversations might paint a very different picture from the public statements that came later. Moments where tone, context, or motivations might suddenly appear in a new light. And if that possibility sounds theoretical, consider what happened the last time a royal memoir disrupted the carefully managed image of the monarchy. Harry's book didn't just generate headlines, it rewrote years of palace storytelling overnight. Suddenly, long-hidden tensions were laid bare. Private arguments became global discussion topics. Family relationships were dissected line by line. Now imagine the reverse happening. Imagine a book written not by the prince who left the institution, but by someone who remained close enough to observe it from the sidelines. Someone who saw the Sussex era unfold in real time, and someone who may have documented pieces of it along the way. That possibility alone has reportedly triggered quiet concern among people connected to the Sussex circle. Because if recordings truly exist, even mundane ones, they could complicate things dramatically. Not necessarily because they reveal scandalous secrets, but because audio captures nuance, tone, sarcasm, frustration, things that written recollections can never fully convey, and that nuance could challenge the simplified versions of events that have dominated headlines for years. Now, to be clear, Ferguson herself has not publicly confirmed any such recordings. She has not announced a memoir focused on the Sussex story, and people close to her insist she remains deeply loyal to the royal family and cautious about causing unnecessary damage. But that hasn't stopped speculation from exploding across media circles, because insiders said the very existence of recorded conversations, even if they're harmless, changes the dynamics of any future book negotiation. Publishers love one thing above all else, material no one else has. And audio evidence from inside royal discussions would be exactly that, which is why the rumor spreading through publishing corridors isn't just about a memoir, it's about leverage. Because if Ferguson truly possesses recordings from those years, she holds something extremely valuable in the modern media landscape, primary source material. And that possibility alone may may explain why discussions around her potential book have reportedly become much more serious in recent months. Some insiders even claim that publishers have quietly asked whether Ferguson would be willing to include transcripts or excerpts from those recordings if a deal were finalized. Imagine that, a royal memoir not just recalling conversations, but playing them back. Suddenly, the entire Sussex narrative wouldn't just be debated in headlines, it would be heard, which may explain why whispers of this project have allegedly triggered frantic behind-the-scenes conversations among people close to Harry and Meghan. Because regardless of whether the recordings are dramatic or mundane, their existence alone introduces uncertainty. And uncertainty is the one thing carefully crafted public narratives cannot tolerate, especially narratives that have been repeated across global platforms for years. But here's the twist that makes this story even more intriguing. According to several royal watchers who have studied Ferguson's career carefully, the Duchess of York has always been unpredictable. At times, she has defended the monarchy fiercely. At other times, she has criticized it. She has written children's books, historical romances, autobiographical works, and business guides. Her relationship with the royal family has swung between awkward distance and surprising warmth. In other words, no one is entirely sure which version of Fergie might appear in a memoir about the Sussex era: the loyal insider, the candid observer, or the unpredictable storyteller who knows controversy sells. And that uncertainty is precisely what makes the current rumors so explosive. Because if Ferguson does decide to write a book, and if those alleged recordings become part of it, the result could reshape the royal narrative yet again. This time from a voice that watched everything unfold from the shadows. A voice that may have been listening more carefully than anyone realized. And right now, the one question echoing through royal gossip circles isn't whether the Sussex story will continue to evolve. That much seems inevitable. The real question is far more unsettling. If Sarah Ferguson really did record private conversations during those early Sussex years, what exactly did she capture? And more importantly, who else might be heard on those tapes? What makes the situation even more unsettling for those watching the Sussex saga unfold is that the alleged recordings are not the only piece of the puzzle suddenly resurfacing. Because once insiders began whispering about the possibility that Sarah Ferguson may have quietly preserved fragments of private conversations, another question began to circulate, one that goes far deeper than a single book deal or a few controversial chapters. If Ferguson really was documenting moments during the years Meghan was entering royal life, then those recordings would capture something priceless to publishers and devastating to carefully crafted public narratives, the raw, unfiltered reality of how those relationships actually formed. Think back to the earliest days of the Sussex story, before the wedding spectacle, before the global fame, before the documentaries, the podcasts, the memoirs, the brand building, and the endless interviews. There was a period of quiet introductions, a time when Meghan was still trying to understand the complicated world she was stepping into, and when different members of the royal family reacted to her arrival in very different ways. And during that time, Sarah Ferguson was one of the few figures who existed in a strange middle ground inside royal life. She wasn't fully embraced by the palace hierarchy, but she wasn't entirely excluded either. She floated around the edges, attending events, reconnecting with old friends, maintaining relationships with people who had known her for decades. That position made her something unusual, an observer, someone who could move between circles without attracting the intense scrutiny that follows senior royals, someone who could sit at dinners, attend gatherings, and listen to conversations without realizing she was absorbing pieces of a future storm. And according to insiders who claim to know about the rumored recordings, some of those moments happened during the exact period when Meghan was learning the unspoken rules of royal survival. Now imagine the atmosphere during those early meetings. There would have been curiosity, excitement, and perhaps some nervousness. Meghan was stepping into an institution with centuries of tradition. Harry was fiercely protective of her from the beginning. Other royals were trying to figure out how this new relationship might reshape the family's future. In those settings, conversations were likely candid, not the polished language of public statements, not the carefully rehearsed messaging of official interviews, just real conversations between people trying to navigate a situation none of them fully understood yet. If recordings from that era exist, they wouldn't simply capture words. They would capture tone, hesitation, frustration, humor, the subtle elements that reveal what people were really thinking before the world began watching. And that is exactly why the idea of those recordings surfacing now has reportedly sent a ripple of concern through multiple camps connected to the Sussex story, because the timeline matters. When Harry and Meghan later stepped onto the world stage to tell their side of the story, they did so years after those early conversations took place. Memories change, perspectives shift, people reinterpret events through the lens of everything that happens afterward, but recordings do not change. They freeze a moment in time. They capture exactly what was said, exactly how it was said, exactly what the atmosphere felt like before anyone knew the full consequences. And in the world of high-profile royal narratives, that kind of evidence can be incredibly powerful. Now add another layer to this already volatile situation. Publishing insiders said that if Ferguson were to move forward with a memoir containing even partial transcripts from those recordings, the marketing campaign would practically write itself. Imagine the headlines: a duchess revealing unheard conversations from the most controversial royal relationship of the modern era. Suddenly the book wouldn't just be a memoir, it would be an event. Television interviews would follow. Excerpts would be leaked. Analysts would dissect every sentence, comparing what was said privately years ago with the public statements that came later. And that comparison could become extremely uncomfortable for certain people, because once audio evidence enters a public narrative, the conversation shifts dramatically. It's no longer about who remembers events more accurately. It becomes about what was actually said in the moment, which leads to a question many royal observers are quietly asking right now. If Ferguson has these recordings, and if she truly intends to use them in a book, why would she choose this moment to do it? The answer may lie in the changing dynamics of the royal family itself. Over the past few years, the structure of the monarchy has shifted dramatically. New priorities have emerged. Certain figures have been pushed closer to the center of royal life, while others have drifted further toward the margins. For someone like Ferguson, who has spent years navigating financial struggles, media scrutiny, and the complicated reputation of the York family, a powerful memoir could represent more than just a publishing opportunity. It could represent relevance, not another interpretation, not another opinion, but something far more powerful. A voice from the past speaking exactly as it did the first time.